is also set to release updated production estimates next week, Monday. In the U.S., most contracts are higher. Solid weekly export sales gave soybeans a boost ahead of today's USDA report. The November bean contract up 8 cents at $9.86 per bushel. Weekly U.S. soybean export sales of nearly 3.2 million tons topped trade estimates, with an additional 260,000 tons to China and 222,000 tons to unknown destinations also announced this morning. Expectations for a downward revision to average U.S. soybean yields in today's USDA report were supportive, although those expectations are largely priced into the market for the time being. Corn, it is also posting gains in early trade, positioning ahead of the USDA report. The December corn contract up 3.5 cents at $3.68.5 per bushel. Weekly U.S. corn export sales of 1.8 million tons came in at the higher end of trade guesses. Traders do expect to see a downward revision to U.S. corn yields in today's report, but the extent of any adjustment remains to be seen. Wheat is mostly higher. Chicago wheat only up 1/4 cent, though, in the December contract at $5.48.5 per bushel. Kansas City 3 cents higher in December at $4.77 per bushel. But Minneapolis spring wheat, the one spot of red on the in the markets this morning, down a penny in December at $5.34.5. Speculative positioning is a feature in the wheat market, with the Chicago futures hovering around their 200-day moving average. Weekly U.S. wheat export sales of just under 500,000 tons were in line with expectations. That's a look at the ICE futures and U.S. markets for Friday, September 11th. In Winnipeg, for Markets Farm, I'm Phil Franz Workington.
There are no such things as small chores on your farm, so you need equipment that works as hard as you do, especially during harvest season. That's where New Holland and Butler Farm Equipment in Fort St. John come in. During New Holland Harvest Days, get terrific deals on equipment to help you work more productively. Save with 0% financing and cashback offers on select tractors, hay tools, and harvesting equipment. Stop by Butler Farm Equipment in Fort St. John today for details. But hurry, Harvest Days ends September 30th, 2020.
The opinions expressed during this show do not represent those of this station. If you've missed any of this show, you can follow the podcast at Energeticcity.ca. Now, an in-depth look at the news and information shaping our community. This is Moose Talks with your host, Doug Craig, on Moose FM.
Welcome to another episode of Moose Talks. It's all about back to school again this week. We'll be checking in with Michele Wiebe, the president of the Peace River North Teachers Association, about how School District 60 teachers are adjusting and getting back to school, or rather to getting back to school, the new COVID-19 policies in place. First up, though, we've got Dan Davies, the Peace River North MLA, and we're going to be checking in with him all about back to school and what he thinks of the back to school plan rolled out by the BC government and how it's going so far. Mr. Davies, thanks so much for taking some time with us today.
Hey, good morning, Doug. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, sir. Well, school's back in session as of yesterday, Dan. Teachers went back officially on Tuesday, some of them probably even before then, to get ready. Why don't we start with what you think of the back-to-school plan unveiled by the government and whether it works for a place like Northeast BC, which you happen to be the MLA of?
Yeah, well, thanks. And, as you can imagine, my role as the education critic for the official opposition has probably never been busier. It started getting really busy in March. So I've heard from multiple teachers from across the province, parents, I've had school districts, trustees reach out to me. The message is the same. There's a lack of clarity on so many different angles. Our big concern, and it's something that we've been talking about since the very start, is literally a lack of a plan. In fact, there wasn't really a plan mentioned by the minister. We were hoping on July 29th that Minister Fleming was going to announce a plan. In fact, that's what he was talking, that the big day was going to happen. And then he did nothing more than kick the can down the road and pass the buck purely onto the shoulders of the school districts around the province to fully organize what the back to school might look like. Now, I have a lot of confidence, without a doubt, in the school districts. But these school districts are already trying to plan around what a pandemic school year might look like. They just didn't have I don't think they had the resources, that they should have had to plan this. And the government should have had some basic goalposts that school districts could work towards. So, so there's some, similarities across the 60 school districts around the province. And this is what we're starting to see right now, because they didn't do that. Is we're starting to see disparity between different school districts, because some school districts are offering a hybrid model, some are not. And we're already starting to hear from parents and teachers saying, well, geez, why is school district, X doing this and we're not? So I think there needed to be some more some goalposts, some direction, leadership shown by the minister, and that wasn't there.
Dan, you said this already. I mean, this is such an unprecedented time to use that very overused word to describe the era we're living in. I mean, is there some room to say that the government maybe had said they were going to maybe have a plan out, and then they didn't, and then pushed it to the school districts because they were working to find the best thing they could do? Or do you just think, no, they've dropped the ball on this? What do you think?
Well, I do think they dropped the ball, and I honestly think that the ministry and government doesn't want to have accept the responsibility. So the best way to avoid responsibility is to do nothing. In many cases, so what they've done is they just passed the buck on to school districts to sort this out, and like I say, an incredible undertaking from school districts, a massive undertaking by teachers across the province. And again, I've been hearing from many. And, again, one of the biggest things that, I think it's important, myself as a father of 2 school-age kids, we recognize the importance. Kids need to learn. It's important that kids are in school. It's important that kids are in school being socializing. That interaction with their peers is absolutely critical. But at the same time, it also needs to be safety number one. And I think that when we start looking at advertisement, the government came out with an advert a week or so back using the public health officer, and had a classroom with 6 kids in it, beautifully distanced and immaculately set up classroom. Again, the reality isn't that, and I can speak to it, and I know Michele, I'm sure will allude to or talk about it as well. I taught in a public school for 13 years. That is not the reality. So what we need to be looking at, and again, it's not being done, is options for, there are kids out there that have compromised immunity, or a family member that the child lives in that home. Some homes have multi-generations living in them. The grandparents might be living with them. Many grandparents play a significant role in helping after-school care for their kids. So it really raises that, when we've been told now for months to keep our bubble small, now that bubble is no longer small. We're starting to see these bigger groups now, and 120 in the high school and 60 in elementary. Parents and families are concerned, and they were looking for options. And this district, in School District 60, there are some good options. There is distributed learning available, but many districts around the province, and they don't have that option. The distributed learning is already taking waiting lists because they're filled up. The independent distributed learning, which, that just blows us away, was cut by $12 million in May. Mm-hmm. At a time when, unprecedented numbers of parents are looking for different options for schooling. They cut $12 million. So I think this is what raises this unknown. And many parents, and we've been hearing across the provinces, if they choose to do one of these other options, they lose their seat, they lose their position, and they can't go back into their brick and mortar school, whatever school that might be. So we've been asking, there needs to be some sort of a hybrid learning. There needs to be flexibility on school districts on reporting their numbers to government, because right now, September 30th, school districts need to have their numbers in to get their funding. So government needs to make sure that that funding is secure. So there is flexibility and there is choice for parents in this, again, you say unprecedented times.
Dan, you mentioned the hybrid model and how you guys were in favor of more of a hybrid model being available across, I assume, all school districts. I remember asking Michele this question last time, and I think she mentioned that there were some teachers who said that was really difficult to pull off for the month of June when there were still students learning at home, but there were also students who were coming into the classroom after having been away for a couple months. Do you think then the government should have provided, you said in general, more resources, but more resources, maybe even more teachers somehow, so that you could, effectively provide that model without overextending teachers who came out and said that was a difficult thing for us to do for a month. I don't know how we could just do that the way things are and continue that in September. What do you think of that?
Yeah. Yeah, and we're not suggesting that the model looked like it did in June, and I don't think that that could have been sustained or could be sustained for a school year. I agree, but British Columbia doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. There's many great examples across Canada. For instance, we see even in Calgary, there's a number of teachers that also are not able to teach. Again, health issues or just age possibly, they don't want to teach. So Calgary has created an entire virtual school of these teachers that didn't want to be in a brick and mortar school. And they are now teaching the children that want that other option. So there are other options out there. The provincial government just received $242 million from the federal government, not just a couple of weeks back, and one of the things that we have asked is that some of that money is earmarked specifically for providing opportunities for school districts. I think if there's ever a time that schools and our education system can be innovative, it's now. The system right now is turned on its head, and if you look at any event, that's often the best time to start looking at what are better ways to offer this. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot of that. We've already seen a lot of that happen, but I think we're going to start seeing some incredible things happen over the next little while, and how our traditional education has been delivered. And in reality, teaching has not changed an awful lot in hundreds of years, other than technology and stuff, but it's still generally bell schedules. You've got your classroom set up, you've got the teacher at the front. It hasn't really changed an awful lot like everything else has. So this I think is also a good opportunity for innovations. I think we're going to see school districts and we're going to see teachers step up to the plate and be very innovative on what this looks like.
Now, as you say, you think the government's dropped the ball. Since the pandemic has started, the NDP has seen their favorability in polls, the politician's best friend and worst enemy, skyrocket into, some might even say, majority territory. As such, the premier has started dropping the election talk. Every once in a while here and there, he seems to mention it. I mean, what do you think of this? I mean, I think before you've said, and the Liberals have said, this is irresponsible and it shouldn't be something that should be even mentioned right now. But given that the government has dropped the ball, would you not see this as, okay, well, maybe we could win and then we could form government and do this better than they have been? What do you think?
Yeah, and it's a daily occurrence now that the hints are being dropped either by the premier or other members of his caucus. The BC Liberals have been very clear that now is not the time for an election. Unfortunately, this is purely self-serving for the premier. But if you were to walk out your front door right now and talk to your first 10 people and say, hey, would you be up for a provincial election right now? I'm pretty sure it's going to be a resounding no. We're in the middle of a pandemic still. There's no arguing that. Our numbers, the trajectory is going the wrong way right now. Yesterday, we had the highest number of recorded cases of COVID since this started. It's not the time. It's reckless to call for an election right now, and even beyond that, I just can't even imagine. We're hearing the same rumblings federally. It would just be the wrong time. If there's ever a time, it's not this time. And the premier said many times he's never had an intention. He will run up the full term. He talks about we're a minority government, that could happen anytime. Well, no, because their partners, the Green Party, don't want it either. So this will purely be the premier making that decision, and it'll be for one reason, and that's selfishness.
All right, Dan, we'll have to leave it on that note. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us today.
Great. Thanks very much. And again, just a shout out to to all of our teachers and school district staff, our trustees. Great job getting ready, and let's have a safe year.
Absolutely. All right, we'll be right back with Michele Wiebe right after this on Moose Talks.
Hey, man, what's for lunch?
I don't know. Maybe a buttermilk marinated chicken fillet, triple breaded and drizzled with buttery garlic oil, 3 sweet pickles, and double mayo!
KFC's new famous chicken sandwich. Nice.
Yes! This is why we're friends!
KFC's new famous chicken sandwich is finger-licking good. Get a combo with fries and a drink, or a box meal that also includes a piece of chicken, individual salad, individual fries, and a drink. Only at KFC on 100th Street in Fort St. John.
There are people in life that you want to keep safe. Sometimes it's your child who's going off to school.
Sometimes it's your dad back at home who worries about you, even though you're fine.
Whoever you want to keep safe, Fort City Chrysler is there for you to help you do it. Whether you're looking for a working vehicle, an around-town cruiser, or even an off-to-school vehicle, Fort City Chrysler has the right vehicle for the right price.
Come down and say hi to us down at Fort City Chrysler for all your vehicle needs, because, like you, we know how important it is to keep family safe. Fort City Chrysler on the Alaska Highway, or fortcitychrysler.ca. Honestly, Dad, I'll be okay.
I know.
Smile Cookie Week is coming to Tim Hortons. Every time you buy a cookie, 100% of proceeds go towards local charities, like food banks and hospitals. Grab one from September 14th to the 20th and help spread smiles across your community at participating restaurants in Canada for a limited time.
Who's a good doggy? Do you have a pet that can do a cool trick or just be adorable? Submit a picture of your pet for your chance to win a $100 gift card to North Peace Veterinary Clinic with Pet of the Month at moosefm.ca under contests.
Do you know who has the best flooring in town?
Yeah, Bronze Flooring. They have a wide selection of all types of flooring. Did you know they have an expert designer on staff to help with planning and all professional, reliable installations?
Really?
And their customer service is fantastic.
New summer hours, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., closed weekends, in the Big Bronze Building on 96th Avenue. Check them out on Facebook.
Armor Lubricants knows when you need tools and supplies, you need the right tools and supplies. That's why they have all of them. Lubricants, grease, coolants, kerosene, DEF, fuel, consumable supplies, tools, electrical supplies, shop supplies, and even lumberjack, grilling pellets, and grilling rubs and spices. Impressive. All of this and more in our fully stocked showroom at 7912 Alaska Road, 250-787-0415.
From the very young to the elderly, quality of life is directly linked to quality of health. At Peace Pharmacy, they are committed to this community, and you can always count on friendly, professional wellness advice. Peace Pharmacy, beside the ABC Medical Clinic on 101st Avenue.
Watch this show live on Facebook or download the podcast at Energeticcity.ca.
Welcome back to Moose Talks. I'm Dub Craig. We're going to keep the back-to-school theme going now with Michele Wiebe, the president of the Peace River North Teachers Association. Good morning, Michele. Thanks for being on Moose Talks.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Now, school back as of yesterday. What are you hearing from teachers so far who returned earlier in the week, some even before that, to kind of prepare on how the return is going? Do they feel like they were adequately prepared by the government and the district to start teaching students again in the classrooms and beyond?
Well, teachers were in schools prior to even the September 8th opening, or when they had their orientation for 2 days. And so being in school and doing things differently, a new normal has taken its toll on teachers. Definitely there are concerns that teachers have around health and safety for themselves, for their students, EAs, and parents, and we just all have to follow the plan, the safety plan that is laid out in the schools and the district plan, so that we're all safe.
Do you think?
So there's lots of apprehension out there.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you think in that regard then that the plan goes far enough? I mean, should there be more restrictions? Should there be more teachers so that classes can be even smaller? What do you think? What are you hearing from teachers in that regard?
So we would prefer to have we would prefer to have the remote option for parents for their students, and that would mean that we would have teachers working with students who may be immune compromised, that don't feel that they can be in school at this time, and to be able to do that for the full year, because we would have teachers who could do that. And then that would reduce density in the classroom, and which means class sizes would be reduced. These are all things that that could be done, that should be done, that aren't. It's not happening here. It may be happening in other districts, but it's not happening here. The option right at this point is homeschooling or distance learning for students. But I honestly feel that remote learning would be a viable option here.
Okay. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. As I understand it, in June, teachers are sort of doing both in their classes, right? They'd have students in front of them, but then they'd also still have the students who chose to stay home to get their learning that way. Are you suggesting that there'd be different teachers for kind of each option, or sort of similar to what we had in June when, at least that I remember, I heard it was sort of a difficult juggling act that some teachers had to pull off in order to deal with students in front of them and also while they're still at home?
June was a test, I have to say, and it was very exhausting for teachers to have students in class and then to do the remote as well. So what I'm saying is that you would have a remote teacher. So let's say that I am immunocompromised. I would say, I will take all the grade 6s in the district, and they would be my students to teach remotely.
I see.
And so that would pull students from all different schools, so that they would have that option. And then maybe another teacher who is immunocompromised would teach, grade 3 or have a 2-3, depending on how many students they would have. So that would be their job for the year, to do this, to have students in front of them through Zoom and teach that way. It is a viable option. There is money for that.
So then in that vein, I mean, what do you think the likelihood is that if parents and more teachers are saying, hey, we want this option available, that the school district would look into making that happen again, to making that an option? Or, is it kind of like we're past the point of no return at this point because the semester has already started, things are rolling? Or do you think that's something they could change midstream, as it were?
Well, so right now, if parents don't want to send their children to school, they can stay registered in their home school, and then they have to make a decision by mid-October. What's going to happen? What do you want to do?
I see.
So if there are parents that feel that they would like this option, I believe that they should be contacting the school district and really saying that this should be an option in Peace River North. And I think the concern here is around getting more teachers then. So how do we get teachers to fill that classroom position? If I'm pulled out of the class because I'm doing the remote teaching, who's going to take my grade 6 class in the school? I think that's the concern.
Okay. I also wanted to talk about this. Dan mentioned before you came on here, he says the government's shirking their responsibility by rolling out a plan and then saying, parents, if you have issues, contact your school board. Do you think then that the government should have laid out more guidance and said everyone has to do it like this, i.e. have remote learning available? Or do you think that in some ways, even though they aren't doing it in this case, in the case of our school district, that it's good that the districts kind of have some leeway to make their own decisions, because a district here is very different than a district in, on the coast, for example, or in the Lower Mainland or in the Kootenays?
So flexibility is always good. I can understand why the government said, okay, here's the outline, and then you plan it, how it's going to work for your district.
Mm-hmm.
And the local, like the PRNTA and QP president and vice president have been involved in discussions around the plan that the district has. Not always, we can always say this is what we would like. They don't always take our suggestions, but these are things that is done locally. Honestly, I understand what Dan is saying around having a bit more of a plan, that they needed to plan better, but districts were given a lot of leeway as to make it work here. And so what works here for schools right now, you're either in school, you're homeschooled, or you're distance ed. So those are the three options that parents have. Whereas in other places, they are offering remote learning. They are offering all kinds of different things that we are not. And that's the whole thing about equity then too, right? Yeah, because I live in Peace River North, or because my children go to school here, I don't have the same opportunity for remote learning. Yeah, and a lot of distance ed programs or places in the province are full, and Dan is right. And so they have limited options. And so I do know that there's been an uptake of registrants for the distance learning in Fort St. John in our Peace River North area.
Okay. And you already kind of mentioned mental health and how that's affecting students and teachers in this difficult beginning to back to school. What is missing from the guidance? Do you think the government overlooked sort of mental health as part of it, or didn't give it its due course?
I think there could have been more information and more options for districts. So I know here the district is putting money into like trauma-informed practice, social emotional well-being for children. Students have not been in school since March 13th. They did a little bit in June. We have not gone full on for 5.5 months. And we know what happens during the summer on a regular year with learning. So I think that what's happening now with everything's going to be new. The transition or the going into schools is different. Being in a classroom is different. My concern is the density in schools. Like for our grades 4 to 12, they can have up to 30 students in the class. How do you distance that? How is that possible? It isn't. I'm going to be like right beside somebody in a desk beside me. It is. I think that needs to be looked at again. I really do. These are my concerns. These are the concerns of teachers, and I believe health and safety of our students and teachers, support staff, admin, parents, everybody is paramount. It's the health and safety of everybody.
All right, Michele. Well, we're going to have to leave it there for now, but of course we'll be checking in as the year goes on and as things develop, how things change, because unprecedented times. I hate using that word over and over, but it just describes it so well. I appreciate you taking time once again to talk to us about this very important issue.
Thanks a lot, Deb. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. We'll be right back to wrap things up right here on Moose Talks.
At Panago, we know summer was made for picnics, but sometimes things can get carried away.
Honey, could you pass the free-range plum salad? Oh, and the heirloom lavender skewers. Ooh, no, with the gold dip. Thanks. How's yours tasting?
Keep summer simple with the Lawn Picnic Combo. Any large recipe pizza, a side of cheesy bread, and 2 liters of pop for only $25.
I forgot my selfie stick.
Order yours at panago.com.
When it comes to iPhones, most people think you can't replace a battery, but Micro Consulting can. If you need a new battery, see the crew at Micro Consulting, because battery life is important. It's how you stay connected, take care of business, and keep in touch with the ladies. See, they just don't stop calling. Hello there. Oh, hi Mom. Also, remember to update your contacts.
For new batteries, screen replacements, parts and more, see Micro Consulting Sales and Service, keeping you connected on 100th Street and on Facebook.
If you're looking for hassle-free internet services, call the Peace Region Internet Society today. With coverage throughout most of the Peace, PRIS can get you connected quickly without the hassle of contracts or bundles. Visit PRIS.ca or call 1-800-768-3311 for more information.
Our community first. This is Moose Talks with Dub Craig on Moose FM.
Thanks. Our thanks again to our guests, Dan Davies, the MLA for Peace River North, and Michele Wiebe, the president of the Peace River North Teachers Association. If you missed this episode, there's a couple ways you can see or hear it again. It'll be available on the Energetic City and I believe on the Moose FM Facebook pages as well. You can also download the podcast at Energeticcity.ca/Moose Talks. That does it for this episode, though. So our thanks to Adam Rayburn for pushing the buttons. I'm Dub Craig. We'll see you next Friday.
Join us next Friday at 10 a.m. for another episode of Moose Talks, a weekly talk show about Fort St. John and the North Peace.
This is Moose Country. This is Moose Country. 100.1 Moose FM.